This video was brought to you by Stormberg, ABRP Planner, MisterGreen, Kempower and Marcus Bil.
So welcome to Kempower. As a short introduction to the company and the technology. My name is Tomi Ristimäki, I'm the CEO of Kempower, and here also as a co-presenter we have Juhana Enqvist from our product marketing to talk more about the technical features of the product and then looking at how the chargers are made and what do we have as well. So basically looking at the company, I think we can look at that we are basically a new company in the business, founded in 2017, but with 70 years of experience we are looking at the company group working with the DC power, especially from the welding applications since 1949 already it's plus 70. We are a Finnish electric vehicle fast charging equipment manufacturer, and maybe you have seen some of the videos before on how the things work, and I hope that you learn something new today on how it works. And we enable the clean mobility by actually using our technical advantage as best as we can. We have two factories here in Lahti, and you will see something of that today, and more than 100 employees at the moment. And looking at how much sales as a publicly listed companies, what we can tell is the first 9 months of last year, that was 19 million euros in revenue, and growth from 2020 is 1,369% to be exact. And even starting quite, let's say, as new in the business, we are already, our chargers can be found in many places in the world, underground, on the ground, for public vehicles, for mining environments. It's more than 30 countries in total, and very much concentration, of course, in the Nordic countries, which is our home market. And looking at basically where we operate, of course, a big part of our business goes also to the CPO customers, but especially now very many chargers being delivered to Finland, Norway, Sweden, to the Nordic environment, and also to UK, and I hope also we have first chargers in Netherlands, in Estonia, seeing Southern European and France, Spain, Portugal coming up very soon. So things are expanding. But it's not only the personal cars where we are concentrating, so it's the commercial vehicles, and it's in there, of course, a big part is now the city buses, which are electrifying in all the countries. If you look at certain countries like Netherlands, it's already more than 70% of the buses is electric in the new ones. In the Nordics, widely, we are looking at more than 30%. But all the countries, I think the buses are moving fastest in the industry, or even compared to personal cars. And we are very excited now that the trucks are coming into the market and the equipment, that's very interesting. But if we look at for Kempower market, we also look at non-so visible machines, so we have big things going in the mining market, and also looking at, let's say, street cleaning machines, construction machines, all the things on top of that. But where we are concentrating today is DC charging, and we think that actually that's the answer of EV becoming the new normal in the market, that you guarantee the people fast movement between the places, and it's the way basically do. We understand, of course, that there is a lot of home charging and things, but we look at that more like a commodity things where you cannot make that big differences anymore in the market. There's so many different competitors, and we see also the DC charging just the beginning in a way that you can make all the time better applications in there and develop the products. And our key thing in there, of course, always is the user experience. I also think that our company group, coming from the tool industry, making welding equipment, that's very much about looking at it from the user aspect. That actually gives a really good background on thinking the ergonomics and the availability and how you connect and how does the actual user see it. And just as a glimpse where the chargers have been ending up, and in a picture format, so if it's a vehicle moving on land or water, and it has batteries and is now standardized quite much to the CCS world, everything in Europe, if we're looking at the machines, if we are looking at commercial vehicles, and if we can see also there the the first HPC chargers for boats as well installed in Norway. And Finnish rally driver Markus Grönholm also got to drive the competitions in Sweden with the electric cars now, and that's a big thing in the e-motorsport as well, where we are also delivering all the chargers to Extreme E series, which is a very interesting world on its own, even if that's not the big market so far. And very nice in the down corner, we see the Norwegian application where they're already removing the diesel and gasoline pumps and replacing them with the EV things. And looking at basically the technological things, I think the scalability, our customers really like that the power can be expanded after the delivery without removing the equipment, and basically we have, especially in Finland, which is not so highly populated with EVs as compared to Norway, people are investing into, let's say, half full power modules, power cabinets, and then when the EVs become more norm, you can just add the cassettes and go on with that. And the dynamics is a big thing. We understand that the electrical connections to the grid are limited, and you should use that connection as much as possible. So you divide the power into different places, and basically if you have standalone chargers, you have to buy the electrical connection based on the total power. So that's the idea of how the queuing and everything is sold better, that you have more outlets so the people can do something else when they are, and don't need to wait for their turn to connect the car. And charging communication is a big thing for us, and we have 100% our own tech on that. And that has led also to the possibility that we can now already recognize 98% of the cars automatically based on the charging curve. And that's interesting data that you can actually gather and you can compare. And that's giving us also the possibility that in the newest versions we can also estimate the charging times very accurately using the data from the vehicle, estimating the battery temperature of the vehicle based on the behavior, and also looking at the ambient temperature, the weather conditions, and give better estimations for the users. So if you take the QR code from our charger, you get the charging estimate. I think error is somewhere in 1 minute range or something, where we can, and taking into account really the weather conditions as well and the battery temps, and that gives the possibilities for the users really to, let's say, give the info if you're having a lunch how much time the charging takes. Backend is in a big topic. I think Juhana will tell more about that we analyze a lot of the data and do a lot of remote. And if there is any problems in the field or we see any, we can do analyzing afar, and we don't need to send technicians to the field to look at the problems and look at really, especially working with the heavy vehicles now which are coming into market, that if the charging communication doesn't work, we can talk with the car manufacturers directly on where is the issues and where are these, because we are also working from the ground up with the, especially with the new markets which are electrifying that are coming. And user friendliness and user experience, of course, is really the key in the Kempower, the whole thing. A little bit on the scalability, I think Juhana can take from the next slide on. I will change the mic. But scalability, as we see it here, is really on this, that everything in the unit is modular and you can update the units after they are. And if the customers need basically 200 kilowatt charger, they can build the central unit which can do 400 and basically update the power when the EVs become, or they get a bit bigger electrical connection without doing installation work. So that's a big thing. Or you can add satellites to the field when the customers need that. No, don't need to every time buy a new charger, buy the whole complete thing. That was the idea in the beginning when the first product concepts were drawn. We thought that this will grow as fast as possible in the EVs, and they will become, let's say, the new normal, how we see it here. And when they increase to the numbers, if you look at the percentage of cars, for example, in Norway, if it's the same in everywhere, the system has to grow together with the EVs. And you don't need to basically stick to the power, or you stick to the outlets you have, and the system can grow. But I think when we go into the dynamics, I will give the
As Tomi mentioned earlier, my name is Juhana Enqvist, and I'm the strategic product manager responsible for the advanced charging solutions. And what we mean by that is that our chargers are very intelligent and very dynamic, as we have in this slide, where they can distribute the power intelligently across the vehicles that are in the field. But in addition to that, when we are looking at the larger fields, which when you go to 16, 32, even hundreds of charging cables in one field, you need to be able to distribute and manage the power very much more intelligently. And this is, for example, bus depots, very important. A little bit on the dynamics here. So you know that all the Teslabjorn viewers probably know very well about the charging curves. I have been studying them a long time and how the different cars behave. So you know that the full power range of full power for everything else and the Audi e-tron is very narrow in the beginning of the charging curve. So why should we reserve the whole charging capacity full, let's say 150 kilowatts or 300 kilowatts, when the vehicle can take it maybe 5 minutes, and everything else then it's just idling there. But in our solution we can distribute it so that whenever there's free capacity, free 25 kilowatt block, we can then dynamically immediately distribute it. No need to unplug the vehicle and replug it back in to get the full power. It's completely dynamic, completely automatic, and just suddenly the owner of the car says, oh, now I'm getting 25 kilowatts more than I did previously if there's a busy situation. So this is one of the kind of, I would say, key advanced features that we have on the chargers, and that has been kind of very well received also by the actual EV drivers that we have on the field. They really kind of love it, how it works. Of course, as Tomi mentioned on the communications, with certain manufacturers we work very closely, and I have actually been supporting the vehicle manufacturers when they start their electrification projects. We know and we have the details understanding, and we see the detail logs on the CCS protocol. And as you know that sometimes if you have noticed that you go with a new vehicle brand or model to a charger and it doesn't suddenly charge and you get an error message on charging, that's because even if the CCS protocol is standard, there are variations. Every manufacturer does it a little bit differently, and then either charger side or then the vehicle side needs to change the implementation so that works. So in many times it's the vehicle manufacturer, the charging manufacturers that need to adapt to vehicle manufacturers' interpretation on the standard, but especially on these bigger utility vehicles, it's many times that we say, hey, this part here does not go according to standard, so could you please change that in your software? And then everything goes smoothly. So that is one of our key strengths, that we understand every little small detail, what's going on in the communication between vehicles and the chargers. EV recognition. One of the previous videos we showed in the ESPA charging field that we can actually see in our backend that what brand and model and make the vehicle actually is. So we have developed these algorithms ourselves. Vehicles themselves, they don't tell anything. They don't tell their VIN number. They tell very little about who they are, what they are, and then we just have to kind of teach our algorithms when we first see an unknown vehicle in our backend. Then we try to figure out what it is, where do we find it, and then repeat and tell them to the algorithm, hey, this is now a new Porsche Taycan, this amount of kilowatt hours battery, etc. Then the system starts tracking on the on every single instance that it will receive afterwards on that, and then start to build these charging profiles, as you see on the charging curve profiles on the right-hand side. So this is where we base our very accurate charging time estimates, that we have profiles for cold battery charging, for kind of a little bit warmer battery charging, etc. And then we predict very early when we see that at this shock the vehicle is getting this amount of kilowatts. Then we can map, hey, now the rest of the charging curve will look like this, and then we get the kind of a very true and very accurate estimate on how long actually the charging takes to, let's say, 60%, 80%, 100%. And this is constantly learning algorithm that we have in here. Back end, here you can see the vehicle recognition examples, so we can drill down. This is actually very high level view of what we can see in the back end, that we can see, for example, in this example, that the Polestar 2 or Volvo XC40, we don't know which one it is, because the electric systems are exactly the same on both cars, so that we don't recognize. So then you can see on the right hand side that all the orange pieces in there are actually the actual power channels and power modules that this Volvo is currently using. And how the configurations are done, how the connections are wired, etc. And from this one, our engineers and our support partners can drill down into very, very deep details of whatever is happening in there. And we have full kind of a history, backwards history, that if we get a customer complaints that my vehicle doesn't charge in this charging spot here, we can go back, look at it, what has happened in the detailed logs, and then kind of respond to our kind of operator customers that this was a reason. And maybe Bjørn, you remember the issue when you accidentally press stop on the vehicle on the charger with your kind of hand in ESPA, and that you wondered why it was stopping. So this is exactly one of the cases. We go and dig deep into the details to figure out whether it's some software problem or a side hardware issue, connection issue, or then maybe kind of accidental stoppage, as in your case. So lots of technology in behind, but of course, many of us are tech nerds like myself and want to know all the details, what's happening in charging. So one of the principles in the user experience was that we want to share both the kind of novices. Don't bring too much information on the display. Just make it work as much as just what they used to with the gasoline or diesel cars. So plug it in and you show your payment and get started. But then there are people like myself and probably yourselves that want to know everything, what's happening and all the charging curves, amperage and voltages. So there is an easy way to connect into that from the charger display, and then also the QR code, what's displayed in there, then you can take it with you when you go and grab a couple of buns in Bolleland, for example. So then you can follow the details also while you're in there. And it's exactly this way that when you have a new EV driver, they just got their car and they drive to the drive to the charger, and what do I do now? That is the kind of absolute kind of novice charging person experience that we want to make sure that they know exactly what to do. But then, of course, we don't want to be too. When people learn and then they become more experienced, it has to be more smoother. No kind of too many prompts and questions and etc. They don't. You know that when you charge your 500th time or 1000th time the charger, you don't even look at it. You just want it to work and plug it in and go. So that is one of the kind of other end of the audiences that we have designed this for. So just and then the plug and charge, of course, in the future will make it even more. Just plug it in and go.
If it comes.
Yes, that is a good question. Okay. Yes, I think we went through this. So, looking at the background data, more information of voltages and currents, and also you can see that we now have in this power sharing situation, many questions from the customer come that you see on the upper level that why didn't I get more power in this case? Typically, it's called battery, as that's the most typical kind of question from a novice person. Or then it is that battery is already state of charge is already something like 60%, and why I'm not getting 50 kilowatts. But also with Kempower chargers, that if there are everybody is charging with an e-tron and they all are power hungry, so then you end up into a shared power situation that you are not getting as much as a car would get. So we want it to be explicit in the shared power situation. And those 38 minutes, for example, you didn't get full power because you were sharing the total power with everybody else at that point of time. But then at that moment, then you bump up into 180 kilowatts and you are getting somebody left, unplugged and left the station. So this is the information we also want to give. Less questions and less kind of confusion on this very different topic of recharging EVs versus refilling your diesel car. So we want to make it easy, and also this same information is shown on the main screen and on the mobile. As you see, there is a shared power logo telling that at this moment of time, this is the limiting factor, whether it's vehicle or let's say grid limiting at some point of time. If there is not the power company asks to temporarily limit the power that the chargers get. So I mentioned that in some cases, as smart and bright our chargers is and the dynamic charging systems, in some cases that's kind of not enough to fulfill, and we want to bring the kind of total value of our system to our customers even higher. So looking, for example, the private cars part is that we want to kind of offer tools for the call center, the help desk people, that they actually see that what brand of the car actually is currently trying to charging there. If for example it suddenly stops, so they immediately know that okay, they are using like Tesla Model 3 in there, and then they can dig into specific instructions that what should help with the Tesla Model 3 to make the charging work better, or immediately of course see that whether it was because of your credit card has expired in your account, that your charging doesn't start, etc. So all this information we provide to the help desk people. We can then provide analytics that with vehicle recognition, that what types of customers maybe you have. Do you have Tesla drivers at a certain point of time, or do you have more Skoda Enyaq drivers in some locations, etc. So we provide this for our customers as a kind of analytical tool to further analyze their what types of car drivers actually visit their location. And we can also provide a advertisement on the screen, and one of my kind of favorite places where we could show advertising when you stare at the screen and look at the handshake progress in there. And you are very kind of it's very sure that you are most probably watching at the screen at that specific time, so you capture your audience very well there. Then the bus depots. that's a kind of a very interesting topic in that sense that there is huge amount of power needed in there. They consume huge amount of electricity. Batteries are very big in hundreds of kilowatts, multiple hundreds of kilowatts, how do we optimize these things, make the costs lower, and at the same time make sure that the buses actually leave in the morning. They are not something like a 50% state of charge when they should start their full day afterwards. So this is what we kind of bring with the charger solution in addition here. So for example, the grid connection, that's problematic in many places also in Norway for public EV charging, but this is especially on the bus depot that there is limited grid connection available, and then every single kilowatt that you use at peak power that charges you extra could charge for the whole next year a certain amount of money per month. So we limit the peak power by kind of reducing the power where it's not needed and kind of evening out the kind of a peak power in there. And then the other side of the coin is that how much the electricity itself costs. At some times of day it is much cheaper. The electricity is much cheaper than the other times of day, so we can then adjust also intelligently to the charging, tell to the actual chargers that when should they kind of use full power and when not. And maybe one thing also public EV drivers know very well that the battery heating takes very much energy if you start with a cold battery and start going onward. So we also try to optimize that not fully charge the bus in the beginning of the night and then let it cool down, and then it's absolutely cold when the morning comes and you need to use tens of kilowatt hours to actually just heat a big battery in there. So we try to shift the loading and use the waste energy when the battery heats when you are charging to actually make sure that you charge as late as possible. So actually reducing the energy consumption in the system. All right, so these are some of the applications where we kind of expand the coverage and intelligence that from our chargers to actually a whole location, whole depot, whole network. Thank you.